It's been almost 2 weeks since Marvel Rivals has released, and I've sunk many hours into the game both in quick play and competitive. Every hero feels very unique with abilities and attacks that suit their character, but most importantly, they all feel impactful and fun in their own way. I'd go so far as to say that every hero feels overpowered to the point where the game is oddly balanced. That is, of course, ignoring powerhouse duelists like Hela and Hawkeye who nobody likes playing against and are permanently banned in Diamond and above. There is, however, one duelist that sticks out like a sore thumb, and yes, I'm talking about Storm, the Omega level weather goddess, who is undoubtedly one of the worst, if not the worst character in the game currently. It honestly hurts my soul because Storm has always been one of my favorite X-Men ever since I was a little kid. There's a reason she's almost always brought up in discussions about leading Marvel ladies. She's fierce, compassionate, is a leader, and can control the weather, goddammit. I mean, how much more badass can you get? But in Marvel Rivals, well, she just exists, and I've barely seen her played at all. Even though I know characters' canonical power levels have no correlation to how strong they should be in a game like Rivals, Storm is the furthest thing from an Omega level mutant or goddess, especially as a duelist. I will give credit where it's due and say that Storm's aesthetic, design, and voice work are all extremely well done. She looks gorgeous but also very powerful, and her signature suit and cape are instantly recognizable. Her Mohawk rock skin is also fire, and I was so close to buying it if it weren't for the fact that she's borderline unplayable, which I will get into in just a bit. Her voice actress Mara Juno has also done a phenomenal job in conveying the character's command and authority, yet with a friendly and compassionate tone. Storm's abilities for the most part are visually fitting for the character, although I wish there was a bit more imagination and that the visual effects were much more showy and dramatic because she's a freaking Omega level goddess. We want a hurricane, not a tornado. But that's just nitpicking. For the most part, Storm's in-game portrayal in Marvel Rivals is fine. My biggest issue with Storm is that the gameplay, which is the most important thing, is missing, and she feels very lackluster at the moment for what she's supposed to be able to do as a character. Her kit itself is ridiculously subpar compared to what some of the other duelist characters can do. Her primary fire allows her to launch these piercing wind blades, which on paper sounds like a very cool attack, but in reality it feels like you're shooting air pellets that barely do any damage. Yes, they can pierce through multiple enemies, but even then it's a projectile that cannot headshot and has fall-off damage for whatever reason. And aren't her primary fires supposed to be wind itself, so why in the world does she need to reload? I think it's beyond ridiculous that a strategist character like Mantis can do way more damage than Storm can with her primary fire. Her secondary fire, Bolt Rush, is a semi-decent nuke, which I'm not too mad about actually, but I do think it's on too long of a cooldown and could do a bit more damage. But even then, it's her only other attack besides her primary fire and her ultimate, so I wish it just had more force to it. I know she has the chain lightning from her team up with Thor, but honestly that should just be a part of a regular kit. Now let's talk about her team buffs, which kind of compensate for the fact that Storm doesn't really do much damage herself, but even then her buffs are kind of lackluster. So her passive damage boost is only 8% for her teammates and 16% for herself, and when empowered this becomes 12% for her teammates and 30% for herself. Honestly, the only time I really notice the effect of this damage boost buff is when you're empowering it for yourself, in which case yeah, your attacks do become a bit stronger, but other than that it's not anything too crazy. But it's her speed boost buff which is the biggest joke. Cause tell me why Storm feels like she moves at the same speed as other characters even with the empowered speed boost, and without it she feels like a paper bag floating through the wind, except there's no wind. Not to mention she's one of the few characters in the roster who are given the ability to freely fly, except she has no dash or boost outside of her empowered speed buff, which keep in mind is on a pretty long cooldown, so she's pretty much a floating target for anyone with half decent aim. There are just too many characters now that can simply knock her out of the sky. It's just an odd design choice for her because yes, she should be able to freely fly because she's able to ride winds, but also you're kind of forced to play near the ground and behind cover to get anything done with her, so her abilities just don't feel like they synergize that well with each other. I guess her ultimate is on the stronger side and is definitely one of the more powerful ultimates in the game. When I use it, I actually feel like I'm playing Storm, the Omega level weather goddess, and not just some weather girl. But even then, there are already a few characters who can completely negate her ultimate, so it's like, why bother playing Storm just to wait to get your ultimate and then have it do nothing? Maybe Storm was one of the first characters designed for Marvel Rivals, but she's in a weird spot where she's almost a hybrid support DPS, yet she's not good at either of those things. If the devs are planning to keep her as a duelist with her existing abilities, then she definitely needs some buffs in a few areas. I personally would like to see her primary fire hit harder, so no fall-off damage, or if they want to keep the fall-off damage, maybe turn it into a hit scan instead of a projectile. Her secondary fire is fine in my opinion, but I wish they incorporated a bit more chain lightning or something of the sort just to make it feel like a bit more of a threat. But most importantly, they need to fix her movement because she's so freaking slow. Maybe they give her a really simple quick dash that allows her to zip through the air momentarily, but she needs something so that she's not just floating there for the enemies to knock down. The other alternative is to possibly give her the reverse Symmetra treatment, so rework her from a DPS into a support character. Now, I personally don't want this to happen because if I'm playing Storm, I want to be a threat. I want to be the one doing damage. But hey, if they're going to go down this route, maybe they should increase the numbers on her buffs so it's a bit more noticeable and let her empower them a bit more frequently. Maybe her ultimate can also be reworked from a damage ability to something more CC and weather control related, so maybe she can send down a hailstorm that temporarily slows down enemies in an area or freezes them. That's just a random idea I had in my head, but there are so many ways that the devs can make this character feel more impactful and like their comic book self. Let me know if you have any thoughts you want to share about Storm in Marvel Rivals in the comments below, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.